record. Alrighty.
Cool.
So welcome to this episode of Chats with Choccy. Today we're with Dr. Lilly, Chinese medicine practitioner. Welcome, Lilly.
Thank you for having me, Jake.
No worries. How you doing?
Good, good. Nice and sunny here in Orange, but still battling that cold wind. So how is it there in Young?
Yeah, it's cold, very cold. I can't adjust properly at the moment. Yeah, it's a struggle.
It's definitely acclimatizing to do.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like it's been getting warmer, and then all of a sudden it's just this cold snap, and it's confusing me. Is it the same?
That's exactly right. Definitely.
Yeah.
But I mean, you would know that's Chinese medical theory 101, the seasons.
Yes. Yeah, and we'll get into that discussion in a bit more depth now, I guess. So I guess for the listeners, just give us a little history on why you got into acupuncture. And
Yeah,
then,
sure.
yeah.
My background before I studied traditional Chinese medicine was in retail and in travel. And I one day became a receptionist for a doctor called Dr. Anthony Chan here in Orange. He's an acupuncturist and a GP. And then he went on to become my mentor. And he really inspired me to study Chinese medicine and acupuncture. So I went to uni in 2014 and started practicing out in the real world from 2018. Oh my gosh, time flies. That's like
Yeah, wow. 5 years ago nearly.
almost 6 years now.
Oh,
Yeah.
almost 6, sorry, yeah.
I know. This year is like nearly over.
I know. Crazy, hey?
Yeah, too insane.
Yeah, and Dr.
So that's
Chang was a GP and a Chinese medicine practitioner.
Dr. Chan is.
Dr.
So
Chan,
he's
so
still
is.
practicing.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
amazing.
he's in his 70s, and one thing that he definitely taught me is that you don't retire from acupuncture. There's no need. It's no heavy lifting. So.
I thought so. Hey, the Chinese practitioner I had in Sunshine Coast, he looked 60, but he was in his mid-70s or something like that, and he was never going to retire. He's like, why would I
That's
retire? Why
exactly
would I
right.
do this?
Yeah, exactly. It makes no sense. Pain doesn't retire.
No, that's right. That's right. He's got a service to the world to upkeep, I suppose. Duty
Very
of
much
care.
so. And I
Mm,
think even past that, for people that are really, really passionate about it, you just can't help it. And I guess they say if something is your calling, it just keeps calling you. So it's
yeah.
hard to ignore.
Yeah. Do you feel that way with your calling towards acupuncture?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
wasn't meant to do anything else. I was meant to be exactly where I am, doing exactly what I'm doing.
That's a good feeling, hey?
And you must feel the same, right? Because you are exploring Chinese medicine yourself.
Yeah. I mean, as a holistic health coach, I definitely feel a calling to that. And I always get that drive to Chinese medicine practitioner stuff as well, the yin yang theory. And every time I see something to do with Chinese medicine, I light up. So, yeah.
That is so exciting.
Yeah.
When we first met at the retreat, I was doing Qigong and Tai Chi Chuan, and I saw you looking over, and I just sort of thought, oh my goodness, he's probably another person that thinks I'm like a crazy lady that's like doing all these weird movements. So I'm so
Yeah.
glad you have some context.
Yeah. Little did you know that I was like, oh, what's that move? I'll try that later.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It makes me so happy to find people who are on that common ground.
Yeah. It's powerful to just not let anyone care what you think and go into a park and just do these weird flowy movements. It's very powerful.
It really is. It really is. And it really helps you exercise um, that attitude about like, who cares what everyone else thinks?
Yeah,
Who
100%.
cares?
Yeah, doing
This
more
is for
things for
me.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do people respond in Orange to acupuncture? Because I know growing up, I never even heard of it until I was like 22, maybe 23.
Ah,
Just because it wasn't here in Young, I don't know what it's like. It's been there for a while in Orange. Do people are open to it, I suppose, is the word I'm trying to say.
Well, Dr. Chan has been practicing for about 40, 50 years.
Wow.
But the reason that it's become a little bit more acceptable through him is because he's a GP. So, as you probably know, in small country towns, people really trust their doctor,
Mm,
right? If they have someone that they're going to that's regular, that they know has their back and understands their history, why would you really go anywhere else?
mm.
So I think that that has slowly built up over the last 40 years, but I do definitely get people even now who have lived in Orange their whole lives that have only just heard of acupuncture.
Wow. Yeah, I guess it's not in the mainstream news and like, COVID's happening. They're just saying, take this medication, do this, and stay away from people. But there's no like, go get your energy balance to go clear your meridians and as such.
That's why I think young people like you and I, we're in a really, really pivotal place to not only emphasize the importance of this kind of holistic medicine,
Mm,
but to make it interesting and
yeah.
fun
Yeah,
and
yeah.
trendy and popular and entertaining, which is all the things that draw us into different modalities in the first place. We're like, that looks cool. That looks
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that idea. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of too many white coats out there, I suppose, and making
Yeah,
it a bit,
exactly.
yeah. Yeah. So what the context of Chinese medicine, how does it work and how does it integrate into the human body, with the human body?
Well, whenever I talk to anyone about Chinese medicine, the first thing I like to do is reiterate one very important point is that we usually have this umbrella term, TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. But what we're finding more and more is that we also have modern Chinese medicine. Both of these paradigms have their roots in the history of China. So we basically have a lot of medical texts that we can refer back to, which have been surviving documents through the dynasties of China that give us ideas about how the ancients practiced, how the people of old kept themselves well, whether that was through herbs or through movement or through acupuncture or through surgical intervention. Um, and that's kind of led into what we now call Chinese medicine today. So
Mm,
it's all there in the history books. The Huangdi Jing is probably one of the more commonly known Chinese texts, which contains a lot of that fundamental theory that you're talking about, yin yang, five elements, how to balance a person's constitution and meridians. And it's really, really fascinating to see that this is something that people clued on to thousands upon thousands of years ago. And
mm,
our biomedical system here, it's still relatively new. We're still experiencing a lot of the pros and cons of what works and what doesn't.
mm.
So as far as I'm concerned, if there's a medicine out there that's good enough for the emperor of a very, very vast populace, I mean, there's got to be something to that, right?
Yeah, 100%. That blows my mind how old it is. That the TCM, it's 5,000 years old, still going
5,000
strong.
years in terms of the solid documentation that we have, but there are
Wow.
records that date back even further, eight,
Wow.
possibly 10,000 years.
Wow, that is crazy.
I know,
Um,
so cool, right?
yeah,
And
that's
it's
so cool.
survived into like the modern era.
Yeah, and things that survive, obviously they work, a lot of the
I
time.
think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of the time when something like, say, a fad diet will come up and then it goes and you don't hear about it. But Chinese medicine seems like it's always been and it probably always will because it seems natural. It just seems like you're in the flow of life when you, I guess, encompass with the five elements and the yin yang.
What I really love about Chinese medicine too is I'm not Chinese. I'm actually half Filipino. But the way that I was raised by my very, very Filipino mother is actually Chinese medicine. And a lot of mothers' medicine and all of these kind of old-fashioned things that we get told when we're young, a lot of those you can see in Chinese medicine, like not going out into the cold wind with wet hair, right? Or
Mm,
wearing socks and slippers around the house if it's cold tiles, not having too much ice cream.
Mm,
All of those things, that's Chinese medicine right there. It's
yeah.
creating this connection between staying warm and staying protected and keeping our life long and well.
Mm, very interesting. So for just say you in particular, how do you stay in the rhythms of life and stay healthy as a Chinese
Oh,
medicine practitioner?
well, I have my warm water right
Yeah,
here.
warm water is the go, eh?
Warm water, warm water. Sorry, I'll just have a listen.
Yeah. Do you heat that up? Is that a heating
If
mechanism
you're
or is it
watching this, go
room?
get a sip of warm water. No, this is just from the kettle.
Wow. Yeah.
So you have a cuppa and then maybe like 10, 20 minutes later, the kettle is not boiling hot, but it's still quite warm.
Mm, yeah.
So that's what I have.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
very nice and soothing and easy on the digestive system and the metabolic system in general. So when we start to look at what we understand about the human body in terms of modern biology, is that our temperature sits at around 36, 37, 38 degrees for good reason,
Mm,
right? Things inside us are warm. Life is warm. Living bodies are warm. Dead bodies are cold. Okay, not living bodies. So because we're spending so much energy keeping in our jobs, maintaining our relationships, breaking down food, keeping the digestion balanced and warm is a really, really, really fundamental part of traditional Chinese medicine. So things like Tai Chi and Qigong, I also use as much as possible to help balance these systems within myself. Um, and it's very calming and gentle and natural. It kind of goes against this extreme approach that we have in modern times where in order to get big results, you have to make big moves. And Chinese medical theory it's almost the opposite of that in a lot of different ways. To maintain health, don't come at disease when it's already way too late, when you've pushed yourself to the brink and you know that you should have intervened earlier. So it's about prevention and listening to your body and keeping that in the context of the weather around you, your own personal genetic makeup, and of course, the socioeconomic conditions that surround you.
mm,
As you
yeah.
probably know, in a small town, it's a bit tricky to do very traditional things like get people to take raw herbal formulas
Mm,
or eat intense kind of things like organ meat, like liver and kidney and those kind of things, which are really common in Chinese diet.
mm,
Um, but it doesn't mean that Chinese medicine is inaccessible. Just the fact that you wake up with the sun and start to ease your day down as the sun goes down is the principle of yin yang theory, which you can
ah,
got my yin
yes,
yang
the
earrings
earring.
on. I go,
Yeah. Beautiful. Can you explain the yin yang theory just for the listeners who might not be, they might have just seen it on the wall of a hippie shop and, they put that sign with hippies and they just disregard it. But yeah, if you could just explain that sign.
absolutely. And I was the
Yeah.
same before I started
Mm,
studying Chinese medicine. It was just another symbol that I would see everywhere that I just associated with, oh, okay, this is sort of like an airy fairy voodoo place, or
yeah.
do you know what I mean? It's like seeing a
Yeah.
pentagram or
Yeah.
something. You're just like, oh, okay, well, that's
Yeah.
somebody being crazy and voodoo over there, so they can just do their thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that intrinsic power of opposites, which that's really what we're talking about when we discuss yin and yang. So when we talk about the symbol itself, you can see you have this white portion and this black portion, and both contain the seed of the other.
Mm,
So even within our everyday operating as humans, it's not really just daytime and nighttime, is it? There's all of these transitionary periods where the sun starts to set, and little by little by little, we go from this extreme yang, daytime, into this transition before it becomes nighttime. It's not like a switch, that someone just flicks on and off.
Mm,
So I think that's the real beauty of yin yang theory, is reminding us that these two things that we think are separate aren't. They're
mm,
part of one whole, two sides of the same coin.
yeah.
So yin, we tend to associate it with quiet time, darkness, women, nurturing and slowing down. Yang or yang, we tend to associate with motivation, activity, male energy, daytime. So both of those things need each other, right?
Mm. Yeah,
If you're going to have a
100%.
big, hardcore work day, you've got to rest to even things out, keep things harmonized.
Mm, yeah. And
So
one thing
it's
I do for that is a little bit of Tai
yeah,
Chi to calm yourself down, hey?
that's exactly right. Do you do Tai Chi as well?
Yes, yes. I did some today
We
at
should
lunchtime,
practice
just out on the
together in a
bus.
park.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's
Yeah.
always better with more people, definitely. The
Well,
energy
I'm
rises.
in Young this weekend, and I'll always be looking for like a nice place to practice Tai Chi and Qigong when I'm done with my patients for the day. I usually
Yeah,
do Qigong first thing in the morning,
yep.
and then I find time for my Tai Chi Chuan at the end of the day.
Okay. What is Tai Chi Chuan? Is that just Tai
Oh,
Chi?
Tai Chi, yeah.
Okay.
What we know as Tai Chi, what we
Yep,
know is like these old ladies in the park doing these really, really cool
yep.
movements. That word, Tai Chi, the traditional Mandarin word is actually Tai Ji, Taiji.
Hmm.
And what Tai Chi means is like supreme ultimate. Tai Chi represents that whole state before yin and yang become yin and yang. So
Mm,
it taps into Taoist theory, which talks about a oneness splitting into two, and then splitting into three, and then splitting into 10,000 things. So what we're talking about really is the creation of everything.
hmm.
And Tai Chi or Tai Chi is a way of us coming back into that unity through movement by using these curved motions to help align ourselves with the energy around us, the chi around us, which is exactly the same as the chi within us.
Mm,
So those kind of practices promote so much mindfulness and so much philosophy, as well as practical things like balance, flexibility, building muscle.
yeah,
So
beautiful.
Tai Chi Chuan, Chuan means fist or boxing.
Oh, okay.
So you have, yeah, so then you'll start to
Yes.
see other variations like Tai Chi Jian, which is these forms and these beautiful moves, but with a sword, right?
Ah, very cool.
Yeah. See, so
Yeah,
you're starting to make that kind of connection. But it's the Tai Chi or the Tai Chi that comes first in the word.
yeah.
So when we start with that, we're talking about this philosophical principle. And then we can talk about, it's our hands that are enacting that principle. It's our sword that's enacting that principle, or it's a
Mm,
fan that's enacting that principle. Because of
yeah,
course, when you look at competitions, you see all different kinds of weaponry
yeah,
and tools used. Yeah.
yeah. Very, very cool. I did not know it was for, yeah, the different types of weapons and stuff. That's really cool. It gives me
It's
more
cool, isn't it?
imaginative. Yeah, I'm gonna imagine it next time I'm out in the backyard. Take my stick out there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. And all
yeah.
you're doing is you're extending that principle of chi or that principle of energy past your fist,
Hmm.
past your hand, and you put that into a weapon. So that weapon isn't separate from you anymore.
Yeah.
That weapon is now a part of you. That
Mm.
fan is now a part of you. It's just a different object that you're extending your energy into for your own benefit.
Back to oneness.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. You should study Chinese medicine. I keep telling you.
Yeah, yeah. I'm still thinking. I'm still thinking.
You'd be
Still
great at
thinking.
it. You'd be a great
Yeah.
acupuncturist.
Thank you. Um, One thing I wanted to ask you and your opinion on it is what's the difference between modern medicine and Western medicine and why they should come together more often and mingle? And I guess the main differences between.
Sure. If you have a look at the system in China, for example, they've done a really, really great job at integrating traditional Chinese medicine with Western medicine in their major hospitals, in oncology departments where people are being treated for different types of cancer. Chinese medicine is a really, really great support for everything else that's been going on.
Mm,
So I feel like the current medical system that we're looking at, biomedicine, um, I feel that that's great for emergency situations, right? It's great for acute situations. If someone gets hit by a car, acupuncture is not going to do too much in the short term to be able to stop internal bleeding or to be able to
yeah,
like reattach a hand
yeah,
or a limb.
yeah.
However,
Mm,
where our biomedical system seems to fail us is those chronic issues, right? So say, for example, you are in a car accident and a top-notch surgeon manages to reattach, one of your thumbs. Okay. For the next 5 to 10 years, they'll probably say that thumb is never going to be the same, right? They'll probably say you'll lose feeling. You might get tingling. There might not be as much functionality in that particular digit. That's when Chinese medicine can really shine and say, actually, we're coming back into oneness when we use these kind of principles in this kind of medicine. So there is a way to remind the body that it's a whole unit and that it can get back to functioning the way that it used to function. So a lot of people go into hospital for, a severe headache, for example, and the hospital might just go, all right, look, there's someone in before you having a heart attack, take some Panadol. Hopefully the headache goes away. If you feel good, go home.
mm,
Chinese medicine is there and ready with a whole separate set of principles, set of fundamentals that say, let's examine tight muscles. Let's look
mm,
at nerve impingement that might be a result of long-term tight muscles. Let's look at blocked channels in the upper back and the lower back. Let's look at your personal history, how hard you work, how much stress you're under, what kind of trauma you've gone through.
mm,
And that kind of thing is time, patience, and getting to know someone. And while there's so much pressure on the biomedical system, I think there's a real opportunity for Chinese medicine to come in and say, let's be a team. You
mm,
know, you guys handle all of those really acute, serious situations that we love modern medicine for. And let's acknowledge some of these more ancient holistic therapies to keep us well past that initial trauma,
mm,
to keep us going. Because, of course, when life isn't immediately threatened, there's a big difference between just living at like 10% and then feeling like you've got 80, 90% to give. You can take care of the kids, you can do your shopping, you can go to the gym and work out. Whereas some people, will just sort of go, look, I'm just managing best I can on 10%. My tank is only so full and it's never going to change. So
mm.
Chinese medicine is there to say, it can change.
Mm.
Fill her up.
Yeah.
Let's like get some more out of this body and life that we have.
Mm. Yeah. Um, Resonate a lot with all that. I haven't seen a doctor in a long time just because I haven't needed those acute issues. And I've been to the Chinese medicine practitioner, and usually it's just a matter of my energy's blocked, or I've too stressed, or I'm too far in the yang, which is usually my
Yeah, yeah,
case. So mainly I go there to get back into the yin, so I can
yeah,
recover and replenish my energy and be more warm, I guess you could say, than hot.
exactly. And
Beautiful.
even to someone who's just listening to all this stuff for the first time
Mm,
and trying to get their head around it, straight away we can kind of sit back and go, all right, if these are the principles of yin and yang, all of modern culture, all of our 21st century living is really geared towards yang. It's geared towards produce, 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 work, 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 goal, goal, goal. Do you know what I mean? Like
Lift, lift,
if
lift.
you're not doing something, you're useless. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And all of these ancient principles are there to say, actually, there's another side to the coin, which is
Mm.
yin, which says it is just as important to slow down. It is just as important to take things step by step. It's just as important to have those moments where we aren't all about produce, 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 result, result, result. That's when we can come into those moments of stillness and quiet, and we can find new motivation for why we're doing what we're doing. And if we really want to be in that, 40-hour a week kind of job that's draining us heart and soul, but we say, no, I'm proud of myself for, being at a desk from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. and never seeing my family and,
Yeah.
working. So now I own 3 BMWs and
Oh, hang on, I'm 50 and no one likes me.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we're starting to kind of change this understanding of what we value.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, very cool. Thanks for that little clarification for the listeners. I'm sure that
No, cool.
many would have got a lot out of that. I wanted to ask you, what is some cool stuff you've seen with your clients in recent times?
Oh, okay. So very recently, I've been treating some edema. So there's a lot of swelling and issues that go on, particularly in chronic cases, things like diabetes, things like metabolic issues, kidney disorders, heart disorders. And we're not talking Chinese medicine now. We're talking things like dialysis, congestive heart failure, cancer. So we're talking about real diagnosis where you can make changes with
Mm.
Chinese medicine, real tangible things. The most exciting thing for me, and I think for a lot of women about Chinese medicine, is that there's so much around fertility and women's health. So one of the coolest things I've seen, not recently, but definitely in my time, is the ability to turn a breech baby.
Wow.
So if you've got a pregnant mama in front of you and she's saying, my baby is the wrong way round, their head is like up here
Mm-hmm.
when they should be turning and getting ready for birth, what do?
Hit up
Just
Dr.
using
Lilly.
one, yeah, using one acupuncture point. Oh, well, not just me, any
Yeah.
acupuncturist, what I mean? We all have access to these points.
Mm.
So just using one point on the little toe. And I have seen that beautiful big belly move immediately.
Wow.
Immediately.
What is
Not
the
not in like 1 or 2 days, immediately. So there's
wow?
exciting results to be had.
What is the toe? What is the big toe meridian point? Acupuncture
Oh,
point.
the big toe is we've got spleen on the medial aspect of the big toe. And then towards the lateral aspect of the big toe, you have liver. But the
Okay.
point that I'm actually talking about is actually on the pinky,
Ah,
on the little toe.
on the little
Yeah,
toe.
which is the bladder meridian.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense now.
Yeah.
Ah,
So we have
interesting.
these aspects and these qualities of meridians where they can move energy up, down, in, and out. So we talk about this thing in Chinese medicine called the qi mechanism, the fact that energy behaves in certain ways, right? So, for example, if you have bowel issues and nothing's coming out or down, we can think about things like constipation, right? And when that mechanism is flipped on its head, we can see this lack of control where our bowels are just going crazy and we're experiencing things like diarrhea and a lot of wind. So, again, at its very, very core, what we're talking about are two mechanisms, right? A mechanism, one going up and one going down, but one's going up too much and the other's going down too much. So by mediating these kind of ascending, descending actions, you can correct so much that's going on with the body,
Mm,
right? So if you think about headaches, our heads are up and our feet are down. So there'll be a lot of different therapies where you start to see people, say, treating the feet. If you have a headache or if you have shoulder pain or if you have back pain, to bring chi down, to try and draw that blockage from this action where it's just come up and up and up. And then the person can feel relieved. The person goes, oh, I feel so much better. The same with things like anxiety, right? It's almost like all of those thoughts and feelings come up and they get stuck up.
mm,
So by having a look at some of these holistic therapies, we go, well, all we need to do is encourage that energy to move down, to let
mm,
that energy know that it's safe to move down and that we can regulate things in that way. And I think when people hear these kind of signs and symptoms explained in a certain way, it's just common sense. They go, oh, well,
mm.
that's easy. I can give myself a foot rub now and then when I get a
Yeah,
headache, or
yeah,
yeah,
for
I can
sure.
soak my feet in some warm water and bring the tension down. And that's Chinese medicine.
I love that. That was beautifully explained. I love the fact that with Chinese medicine, it sort of gives the power back to the client as well, back to the patient. Everyone can do all this stuff just at home if they want to, almost, apart from
Exactly.
the banging needles into yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I wouldn't recommend that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
would not
No.
advise you like go into an acupuncture shop and buy a box of needles and do that to yourself.
No, no,
Definitely
no.
go to someone that's licensed and registered. The same with
Yes.
herbs as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of different interactions that we can see with herbal formulas because so many people are taking things like blood pressure medication,
Mm,
um, or whatever other prescribed meds to handle their migraines, to handle their nausea, to handle their reflux. Um, right. And if you think about nausea and reflux, it makes sense that we put things into our body and they go down. So when we have nausea and reflux, what's happening? They're coming up,
mm,
right? So straight away we have like this little imbalance of things coming up. But these medications and prescriptive drugs that we take, they tend to create a synthetic reaction that will change that for us. And as soon as we stop taking those drugs or those pills, we run into trouble again. But
mm.
unfortunately, even the pharmaceutical industry knows you probably can't take certain pills and certain drugs forever and ever and ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people educating themselves is really exciting and making sense out of things, and going,
Mm.
okay, how can I help myself?
Rather than just putting a pill in there, just asking why a few times, like why is my reflux coming up all of a sudden? What am I lacking? Or, you know, rather than just, yeah, painting it with pills and making sure to be, just I'll sort it out later. I'll sort it out later. It's only going to come
That's
out
exactly
somewhere
right.
else. Yeah.
And the pharmaceutical industry absolutely has its place in the world.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
unfortunately, the average person isn't educated on things like that pill sitting on that shelf. It actually has to have a coating around it in order to be preserved, in order
Mm,
for it to sit on the shelf in that pharmacy for however many months that it needs to sit before you buy it.
mm,
That is what's usually causing a lot of the trouble, the different preservatives and constituents that we put into these kind of drugs to make them last and last and last and last and last and sit
wow.
on our shelves without going bad, right?
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's when we start to look at the world of preservatives in general that we start to go, oh my gosh, that's what's having such a huge effect on people's gut health
Mm,
because their whole digestive system has to break down that coating to get to what's in the pill, to get to the usable thing inside it. And we
mm,
don't ever think about those components. We just go, oh, yeah, my doctor said I take that. So I take that.
mm,
And we aren't educated in a lot of these different bio and physiological reactions that the body is going to do no matter what type of medicine you're studying, right?
mm,
Our stomach acid is so, so important. And that's really changed over time because modern living is it's kind of hardcore.
mm. Yeah, 100%. I yeah, I guess for the listeners now that we coming to the end of the podcast, just what can people do at home now just for to balance themselves out a little bit more?
I am very much that kind of person that is like, look, less is more. We
Yeah.
live in a society where when we have issues and when we have problems, we want to come at them with like 1,000 different interventions. Chinese medicine tells us it's okay to try an elimination for, a week or so. It's okay to have a little fast to see how we're feeling. It's okay to slow down, have a few deep breaths in and out, check our posture, right? Check our water temperature. Yeah, make
Yeah.
sure it's not too cold, right? Because if you think about, this body that's under so much stress, you're just giving it more work.
Mm,
So the best thing that I can say to people is stop giving yourself more work. You're probably already under a lot of pressure and under a lot of stress. So now is the time for you to sit back and say, what can I carve out that's really good for me? That isn't
mm,
about a deadline. It's not about a boss. It's not about making more money. It's not about achieve, achieve, achieve. What can I do that makes me feel centered and peaceful and
mm,
relaxed? That might be yoga. That might be meditation. That might be listening to your favorite music. That might just be have 5 minutes with a cup of tea.
mm,
And by starting small, we can build into the bigger things. We can build into Qigong practice. We can build into Tai Chi practice. We
mm,
can build into eating seasonally, and doing all these other kind of changes where if you come at someone too hard and too fast, they'll be like, I'm not going to follow through. I already have my routine. My
mm.
life is already going a certain way. And you've just come at me with 10 changes to make. And
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
So the best thing that you can do is start small,
Mm,
do one or two things even through the week that help you slow down. And if your
mm,
life is already too slow, if you're a couch potato, then you can use yin yang theory. Do a couple of things to help boost you up. Take a walk in the sun, you
mm,
know, spend some more social time talking with friends and being less isolated. And
mm,
we can naturally build into our weaknesses because every person is so different. So it's
mm,
really important to find out who am I and what do I really need? Am I the kind of person that's geared towards a fast lifestyle? Am I the kind of person that just wants to sit on the couch and do nothing? And how can I harmonize my weaknesses? They say
mm,
you make peace with your enemies and not your
mm.
friends. Likewise, we need to strengthen our weaknesses, right?
Mm.
And not our strengths. Like
Yeah.
why go and do leg day over and over again and your upper body is all scrawny? You want to keep it balanced.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I fully agree. We'll wrap it up there, but thank you very much, Lily.